The moment that still makes my hands shake when I think about it wasn't at my mom's funeral. And it wasn't even when I found out my husband expected me to work his promotion party like a waitress just hours after we buried her. It was the exact second he leaned close to my ear, smiling for his coworkers, and whispered, "Don't embarrass me tonight." That whisper felt louder than the prayers we had said at the grave earlier that day. It cut deeper than any insult he had ever thrown at me before. In that moment, something inside my chest cracked open, like a fault line finally giving way after years of pressure. I looked at the man I had loved for 8 years, the man I had defended to my friends, the man I had chosen over and over again, and I realized he didn't see me as his wife anymore. He saw me as something he owned, an accessory, a background character in his success story. So tell me honestly, before you judge me for what I did next, was I wrong for finally choosing myself over him? I'm asking because up until that night, I genuinely believed I was being a good wife. I thought being a good wife meant being quiet when things hurt, being patient when I felt ignored, being understanding even when I was exhausted. I thought love meant compromise, and compromise meant swallowing your own feelings for the sake of peace. I kept telling myself that this was just a phase, that once Adam reached whatever imaginary finish line he was chasing at work, he'd slow down, he'd notice me again, he'd remember us. But standing there in a black dress that still smelled faintly of incense from my mother's funeral, holding a tray of wine glasses while his boss laughed at a joke I couldn't even hear over the pounding in my head, I knew something had gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. My body was there, but my soul felt detached, floating somewhere above the room, watching this version of me that I barely recognized. Would you have stayed quiet like I did for so long? Or would you have done what I did next? To understand how it got this bad, I need to take you back to the beginning, because this didn't happen overnight. My husband, Adam, and I met in our mid-20s. I was fresh out of university, working my first real job, still hopeful in that naive way where you believe effort always leads to reward and love always fixes itself. Adam was ambitious, confident, and charming in a way that made everyone feel like they mattered when he spoke to them. He had big plans, big dreams, and an even bigger belief in himself. He talked about the future like it was already written, like success was inevitable. I fell hard for that certainty. Growing up, my life had been anything but certain. My dad passed away when I was young, and my mom became everything at once: provider, protector, emotional support. She worked herself to exhaustion to keep us afloat, and I watched her sacrifice quietly, never complaining, never asking for more. Stability mattered to me more than romance, and Adam seemed like someone who could give me both. In the early years of our relationship, things really did feel balanced. We both worked full-time, we split chores, we cooked together, laughed together, dreamed together. We talked about buying a house someday, traveling, maybe having kids when the time felt right. When he worked late, I brought him dinner. When I had a rough day, he listened, or at least he appeared to. Looking back now, I realize the warning signs were always there, just subtle enough to ignore. He loved being praised. He loved being admired. And slowly, his job stopped being something he did and started being who he was. Every conversation circled back to work. Every decision was filtered through how it might affect his career. I adjusted without even realizing it. I scheduled my life around his deadlines. I lowered my voice when he was stressed. I learned which nights not to bring up anything serious. When my mom got sick, that shift became impossible to ignore. The diagnosis came like a punch to the chest: late, stage cancer, the kind where doctors use careful words and avoid eye contact, the kind where timelines are vague but hope is thin. My mom was my best friend, my anchor, the person I called when life felt too heavy. I felt like the ground was disappearing beneath my feet, and all I wanted was support. I started spending more time at her house, driving her to appointments, sitting in waiting rooms that smelled like antiseptic and fear, cooking meals she barely touched, and just holding her hand in the quiet moments when words felt useless, Adam said he understood. He said all the right things at first. But his version of understanding came with conditions. He sighed loudly when I came home late. He complained about eating alone. He reminded me how stressed he was at work, how important this upcoming promotion was. He'd say things like, "I support you, but you know this promotion is critical for us. For us." That phrase haunted me, as if my mom dying was somehow competing with his career goals, as if grief had a schedule that should respect office politics. I felt torn in half, pulled between being a daughter and being a wife, and somehow failing at both in his eyes. I started apologizing for things that weren't my fault. I apologized for being tired. I apologized for crying. I apologized for needing him. The night my mom passed away is burned into my memory in fragments. The steady beep of machines, the soft murmur of nurses, the weight of her hand in mine growing lighter. When it was over, when the doctor gently told me she was gone, I walked into the hospital hallway and called Adam. I was crying so hard, I could barely breathe. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. He answered, and instead of asking if I was okay or where I was, he said, "I'm in the middle of something important. Can it wait?" I remember staring at the beige wall, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me, and whispering, "She's gone." There was a pause. Not the kind filled with shock or sorrow, but the kind filled with calculation. Then he said he'd come after he finished up. He arrived 2 hours later. He hugged me, stiff and awkward, like he didn't quite know what to do with my grief. And then, almost immediately, he checked his phone. I told myself he was just bad with emotions. I made excuses for him because that's what I had learned to do. The funeral was scheduled for Friday morning. Adam came, dressed impeccably in a black suit. He shook hands, accepted condolences, nodded solemnly. But there was something performative about it, like he was playing a role instead of actually feeling anything. He left early, saying he had to prepare for something big. I was too numb to question it. Later, I found out that something big was his promotion party, planned for that same evening. Yes, the same day we buried my mother. When he told me, he said it casually, like he was mentioning dinner plans. "The team's coming over tonight. It's important. My boss will be there." I sat there, hollowed out, my mind still replaying images of the grave, the flowers, the finality of it all. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. A few hours later, I was sitting on the edge of our bed, still in my funeral clothes, staring at the wall. The house felt too quiet and too loud at the same time. Adam came in and placed a stack of folded clothes beside me. "Can you change into something nicer?" he asked. I looked at him, genuinely confused, and he added, "You'll be helping serve drinks and food. It wouldn't look good if we hired someone. Plus, you're already dressed in black." For a moment, I thought he was joking. I waited for the smile, the laugh, anything to indicate this was a mistake. It never came. My chest tightened. I said, "Adam, I just buried my mom." He frowned, annoyed, like I was being unreasonable. "I know, but life goes on," he said. "This is my big night. Don't make it about you." Those words echoed in my head as the guests started arriving. "Don't make it about you," as if my grief was some selfish indulgence. His coworkers filled our living room, laughing, congratulating him, clinking glasses. The house that had felt like a home now felt like a stage, and I was expected to perform. I moved through the space like a ghost, refilling wine, carrying trays, forcing a polite smile when someone said, "You must be so proud of him." One woman even laughed and said, "Wow, you're such a supportive wife." I wanted to scream. My feet ached. My head throbbed. My heart felt like it was being crushed over and over again. Adam didn't thank me. He barely looked at me except to gesture when someone needed another drink. Halfway through the night, I overheard him talking to his boss. "Yeah, she's great," he said, nodding in my direction. "Keeps everything running so I can focus on work." He laughed and his boss nodded approvingly, like this was some kind of achievement unlocked. That was the moment it all clicked. This wasn't just about this party. This wasn't just about that day. This was how he saw me. This was my role in his life. support staff, background noise, someone to smooth the edges of his ambition while he took center stage. Standing there with that tray in my hands, grief sitting heavy in my chest, I felt something inside me shift permanently. So that's the situation I was in, exhausted, broken, humiliated in my own home. Before I tell you what I did next, I want you to really think about it. If you were in my shoes, if you had just buried your mother and were being treated like hired help in front of strangers, would you have stayed silent to keep the peace, or would you have finally said enough? Because what I did next changed everything. I walked into the kitchen and set the tray down. My hands were shaking. I looked at my reflection in the microwave door. My eyes were red and swollen. My face looked older somehow, weighed down by things I hadn't let myself feel. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. And in that moment, I thought of my mom, of all the times she told me to stand up for myself, of how much she had sacrificed without ever asking for credit. And I realized I didn't want her legacy to be my silence. I walked back into the living room and gently clinked my glass with a spoon. The sound cut through the chatter. Everyone turned to look at me. Adam's smile froze on his face. He hadn't expected this. My voice shook at first, but then it steadied. "Hi, everyone," I said. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate Adam's promotion." People smiled, nodded. Today, we also buried my mother. The room went still. I could feel all the eyes on me, and I was asked to serve tonight because it was important not to embarrass my husband. You could hear the hum of the fridge. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Adam's face drained of color. I set the glass down and said, "I'm going to step away now. Enjoy the party." Then I walked out. I grabbed my coat and left the house without looking back. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I couldn't stay there another second. My phone exploded with messages, angry ones, panicked ones. I didn't answer. I drove to my mom's house, the place that still smelled like her, and sat on her couch. I cried until my chest hurt and my eyes burned. For the first time in months, I let myself feel everything. The aftermath was messy and painful. Adam showed up later that night, furious. He accused me of humiliating him, of ruining his big moment. I told him he had ruined our marriage long before that night. We argued for hours. Old resentments spilled out. Things were said that couldn't be taken back. In the end, I told him I needed space. I stayed with my aunt for a while, surrounded by people who asked if I'd eaten, who sat with me in silence without trying to fix me. Adam tried to apologize, but every apology came with a justification. He was stressed. He didn't mean it that way. I overreacted, and that's when I realized the truth. He wasn't sorry for what he did. He was sorry he got exposed. It's been months now. We're separated. Therapy helped me understand how much I'd been shrinking myself to fit into his life. I still miss my mom every single day, but I hear her voice reminding me that love shouldn't feel like servitude. Looking back, I don't regret what I did that night. I regret how long it took me to choose myself. So that's my story. If you were on my side, like this video, subscribe for more stories like mine, and tell me in the comments what you would have done if you were me. I'll see you in the next story.